Today, I'll be teaching my father, Junius Cassidy, and my mother, Sonia Cassidy. Y'all may be seated. Today, I will be presenting 5 question-begging arguments regarding if homosexuality is morally wrong. And you might be wondering, what is a question-begging argument? A question-begging argument is a circular reasoning where the premise of the argument assumes the truth of the conclusion it is trying to prove. In these 5 question-begging arguments, we will discuss if the premises are true or whether the argument is sound. But first, you must understand what it means for an argument to be logically valid and sound. Logically valid, an argument where the conclusion, if the premises were true, the conclusion would be true. For a sound argument, an argument where the conclusion and the premises are true. Any questions?
No, I had to read that twice, but yes.
Yeah, it's kind of this type.
Yeah.
You know that. Alright, so first question-begging argument. Example. The Bible condemns homosexuality. All things the Bible condemns are wrong. Therefore, homosexuality is wrong. So the problem with this argument is the premises aren't necessarily true, and the conclusion is not necessarily true. For example, Leviticus calls a man laying with another man an abomination unto God. But there's a lot of things that they call an abomination that we do in our everyday life. For example, eating shellfish in the Bible is an abomination to God. Wearing mixed cotton is an abomination to God. And touching dead pigs, so eating bacon, playing football would be an abomination to God. So, with that being said, I don't think we can assume that homosexuality is wrong because the Bible condemns it. Our second argument is homosexuality is not universalizable. Homosexuality is not universalizable. All things that are not universalizable are wrong. Therefore, homosexuality is wrong. So, in this case, just because it is not universalizable doesn't mean it's bad. For example, everyone needs a day off from work. It gives your body time to rest, gives you time to, refresh your body. But say everyone on earth decided to take a day off at the same time. That wouldn't be good for society because, society wouldn't function because we need, people to work. So with that being said, just because an action isn't universalizable doesn't necessarily make it wrong. Our third argument is homosexuality is harmful. All harmful things are wrong, therefore homosexuality is wrong. In this case, it's kind of a different one. Homosexuals are, in many cases, blamed for many things in society that they don't necessarily have anything to do with. Like in the, a long time ago, like not really 1900s, but 1800s, homosexuals were blamed for things like diseases, natural disasters, like crazy things like that. So the case in this one, cause and correlation are 2 different types of things. For example, like there's a soda and alcohol argument where people who drink soda are more likely to drink alcohol, but that doesn't mean that soda causes alcoholism, right? It could be stress, addiction, it could be anything. So same thing with homosexuality, just because a harmful thing happens doesn't mean homosexuals cause it. And our fourth argument, homosexuality is, homosexuality is unnatural. All things unnatural are wrong. Therefore, homosexuality is wrong. So in this case, obviously just because something is unnatural doesn't mean it's wrong. Like, for example, even though we are natural, when slaves were brought over to America, they thought black people were unnatural, and or even a better case, black people have a baby, they're mixed. Technically, that is unnatural because you know what I'm saying. So with that being said, just because you're mixed doesn't make you wrong, or like mixed baby is morally wrong. And our last example, homosexuality corrupts human sexuality from its proper purpose. All things outside of human sexuality's proper purpose is wrong, therefore homosexuality is wrong. In this case, if we were to make this assumption, then that would mean things like oral sex is wrong, kissing is wrong, all sexual acts that don't really correlate to the human sexuality's proper purpose, which is reproduction and So sounds easy enough, right? Now we're gonna give y'all a chance to try and make your own arguments. I'm gonna stop the video here. I'm gonna give y'all a chance to make your own, and then we're gonna come back. Okay, we are back. My parents gave 3 arguments that we are going to break down and see if they are logically valid or sound. These do not necessarily align with their views, but it is according to the topic, and they're just examples. First one, homosexuality weakens family structure. All things that weaken family structure are wrong. Therefore, homosexuality is wrong. Will we say that that is logically valid?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I agree. Is it sound? Sound would mean that the premises are true and the conclusion is true. I don't think we can necessarily say that the conclusion is true. Homosexuality is wrong. We don't really know. So I would say that it is not sound. We don't know. Second argument. Homosexuality behavior harms social stability. All things that harm social stability are wrong. Therefore, homosexuality is wrong. Same structure, so that would also be logically valid.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I don't think all things that harm social stability are probably wrong. So I would say that that might be sound, but the conclusion, it is not necessarily true. So I don't think we can say it's sound. And our third and final example, homosexual relationships are not open to procreation. All relationships all relationships that aren't open to procreation are wrong. Therefore, homosexual relationships are wrong. And once again, same structure, so that would be logically valid, but I don't know if we can agree that it's sound. So, that being said, that's my presentation on is homosexuality morally wrong. And now, I'm going to cut the camera again. I'm going to ask my parents for their feedback on my presentation.
With the presentation, I like that you did not make your judgments off of just pure emotion. You looked at facts, you did research, and this class seems to be teaching you how to think, and that's one of the big things that's missing today. So, it even had me to think about some things when we were discussing the questions at the end. But overall, I think you did a good job. I'm happy that you're taking a class, and I hope that you approach a lot of things like this in life.
I'd agree. The class, you're definitely learning how to reason and recognize, or creating arguments, whether they're, correct or not. So being able to balance your opinion versus a fact and versus your research is very enlightening. I definitely enjoyed the presentation, and keep up the good work, man.
Appreciate y'all.